hello, I'm Volker, you already heard it. Yes, first I have to add, because it's 4th of July, I'm German, many people in Germany feel that way. I feel that too. Congratulations to the Independence, for the Independence Day to our US friends. I think this is not kidding, you know, because we have some issues, let's say, with the US government today, but not with the people of the US. That's very different in my view. So congratulations. Thank you. I think you need another one, because some hours ago, a member of the Bundesnachrichtendienst, which is the German Secret Service, was arrested because spying for the NSA. And whom was he spying? It's the Inquiry Commission of the German Bundestag. German Bundestag is the German parliament. So we are deeply into problems now, I think, because, okay, when they are listening to what Angela Merkel has to say, we all German have to listen to her anyways, and they did it. A second one, they broke her phone again after promising not to, after Obama personally promised not to. It was revealed that a new phone was broken again, but this is, I think, a little difficult now. But I'm very happy. I'm here for the hackers community, not for German government or German Bundestag, so maybe they have a difficult issue now to talk about. I want to introduce you some other ideas, some extra view on the problem of that mass surveillance we are all facing. And I want to introduce, of course, a technical view, so please forgive me for that. I cannot do it the other way around because I'm just a tech guy. But I'm trying to explain in words which are not too technical. If not, shut me down or something, please. Or just stop me. Okay, so my topic is big data and its impact on society. It's a huge topic, obviously. And I want to remind, I think it was Francis Bacon who did that sentence. This sentence is plain wrong, right? So it's plain wrong because it looks like to know things would be power, but that's wrong, because power is to know more than the others. So the idea is that if you're knowing more than the other, and especially about the other, then you're getting into power about the other. That's a basic idea of political power, of course. I just want to bring that in mind again. So power is not information, it's the delta. It's the difference in information. And if you want to have égalité, it's one of the basic principles, I think, one of the ideals of French Revolution, one of the basic principles of a democratic society, then that means you need a delta I of 0. And that brings us to the organization I'm here for. It's the Chaos Computer Club. We are a hackers community, that's totally true, but we're also a community who tries to fight for privacy and, on the other side, for freedom of information. So thank you, Mrs. Redding, for your speech. Really was excited to listen to you. And what we're facing today, why it is so different to all the years before, I think it's a matter of scalability. It's in that way a matter of scalability, not that we already heard that, only scaling technology. With scalability, we informatics guys mean that a system can grow without substantially growing costs. Usually with costs, we mean things like CPU cycles or space on your hard disk, but I mean now really, let's say, euros or US dollars or something, or I'm living in Switzerland, Swiss francs, does not matter. These type of costs. So a system is scalable if, when it grows fastly, then costs don't grow. This is best. Sometimes you can add growth to a system and costs keep stable. There is the basic cost you pay once, and it does not matter if you have 1,000 or a million of incidents with the system, it will just grow without adding any costs. There are systems like that. At least a system should grow less than linear to be applied in a mass environment. And so thinking linear is a kind of limit. It was like that. It was like that with the mass surveillance for what we call POTS. It's plain old telephony service, you know. It's the two tin cans with a line in between. We all know that. We call that a telephone, you know. Not something like that, you know. Oh, I lost it on my desk. It's not a telephone what we have in our pocket today. This is a computer in a computer network. Physically, that has nothing to do with a telephone. Logically, it's a totally different thing. You can simulate phone calls, but you also can start apps on it. We all know it. So that's really a computer. That's not a telephone anymore. But in the old days, it was telephones. There were telephones, so that's plain old telephony services. And really, what you had was first a full mesh of lines, and this means we have a scalability which is in square of number of members. So each line from each person to each person means, well, this is the same. How much makes it ding if you have some champagne together with friends, you know? If you have 2 people, if you have 10 people in your room, if you have 20 people, how does that scale? It scales with a square. And they tried, the engineers tried to bring that down by introducing the ideas of star-shaped routing. They made centers, and everyone has a line to the center, so it's linear, but there are lines between the centers, so it's more than linear again. So this kind, if you want to do mass surveillance on each line, then that means you have to, this does not scale out, you know? So it does not scale out means it does not scale out in costs. So it's difficult to do mass surveillance with something like that. That means you only can do eavesdropping on the bad boys, which is not bad in a democratic view, of course, if that's the only thing you can do efficiently, well, with including some mistakes, small mistakes rather, okay? This was an incident in the old days when a president had to go when he was doing surveillance on the wrong hotel room, okay? Sometimes we had that in history. Today, when a president is doing surveillance on all his hotel rooms on the planet, I'm pretty sure he would not have to go anymore. So what changed? Why wasn't it possible in the old day and now it's so possible and it's so easy and it's so cheap? Why? Because scalability now is there. For example, if you're eavesdropping phone calls, this scales out really with a constant complexity. That means you put once your environment in the net, pay it once, and then it costs nearly nothing per incident. So you can do easily mass surveillance. That's very cheap. And with storing all the phone calls, not only eavesdropping, but also storing, recording, that is linear. It is, in the first place, is linear because, well, you have to pay hard disk, you know, if the disk is full by the next one, until it's full by the next one is linear with phone calls, okay? But that's not true. It's not true in a way because of Moore's law. Andy Moore, one of the founder of Intel, made that, published that law because prices for hard disks are falling exponentially down. So you can think if you buy the next hard disk, it's even cheaper or bigger, which is the same per phone call. So even that scales out less than linearly. So it's so cheap to record each phone call, so it can be done. The same is for video calls. Video calls have a linear drawback, you know, you're recording not kilobytes up to megabytes, you're recording megabytes up to terabytes. We heard it, a Hollywood movie, yesterday I heard it, a Hollywood movie which even won an Oscar, has around about 2 tera, and that's it, you know? So 2 tera is what you can buy in a supermarket. It's not an issue anymore. Reading all your email is even way cheaper because emails are smaller. Same game. Storing all your email, ditto. Watching all your other net activity, way cheaper. It's very, very cheap to record everything. You really can pay that. And that's, I think, one of the main reasons why it's now happening. It's not only that people are driving crazy, it's just because it can be done, it's cheap, you know. Because if things can be done and are cheap, usually, in the first place, they happen, we have to discuss afterwards. Well, okay, it could be an option to listen before and think before, but it didn't happen, now we face that. How is it with open government? So that's one side, that's a privacy side, and you see that we have some incidents there, and that's, I think, the reasons for it. How is it with open government and freedom of information? First, a very positive thing, and thank you, dear politicians in the EU and in all the countries of the EU, that you're following the idea. Congratulations to the US in that point, by the way, without any sarcastics. The US has a great freedom of information law. In the EU, we now have a lot of freedom of information law, which are really great. So it's developing in a good direction from the side of the laws. But what we face as an organization is usually we are kind of liberty rights organization, we are facing stonewalling with the public offices who should fulfill that law. So I have the feeling they have the idea they lose power giving away information, and they're totally right because they have that delta I, and well, I'm a citizen, you know, if I pay them, I would like to have that delta I, well, I have that too, so the delta goes to 0. But okay, this is what we are facing, and that's what we are fighting for. So that's a stand of the discussion, I think, and it's also a stand of the discussion in the US, by the way. So I think, personally think, what is public should be public, okay? It's not that we should decide too much on it. I know all the stuff about, well, intelligence services, they try to remain secret, but that gives all the problems. And I don't know even if an intelligence service is something a democracy can face in such an environment. So I think we should discuss that at all. So I have the feeling many governments unfortunately see it as a rearguard action, you know? One step in front, two behind. But it's developing in a good direction, but slowly because of that stonewalling, unfortunately. I think this really needs a change in mindset. I'm really a convinced European, and I'm really convinced of the European Union. But that needs that we citizens are feel being taken serious, okay? And that means that we can be involved, and that means that we are informed what's happening, and I think there is a good way already done with that, but we really need to improve on that way again. So that's, in my view, where we are standing today, but we have big issues on both sides, and I think that's a reason for it. I really can recommend reading that book today with that name. Really, please Google that. Please Google it if you want to read it, because we have an extra issue. I want to remind you, it's public, it was in the media, but I just want to remind you, Edward Snowden wasn't hired by the NSA. He was not a member of staff of the NSA. He was a member of staff of what we call a contractor. He was a member of staff of a private-led and owned company, in that case, Booz Allen Hamilton. And that means we not only have a delta I between the government and the citizens today, we now have a delta I between even a private-owned company and the government. Okay, because they do the job, not the government. That means we are privatizing power. And that means the old rules This is a Swiss view. I'm already living in Switzerland, so very Swiss, I know. People is above parliament. Parliament is above government. Government is making the rules the enterprises have to follow. This switches with that idea. The new rules are really dangerous, you know? We know that already out of the discussion for TTIP and the so-called investment interests. This is the same topic again, here in a very dangerous region. It's enterprise. An enterprise knows way more than the government, is working for a governmental organization, but knows more and can decide what they want to give. And the government knows way more than parliament. We saw that. We saw that in the governments who are now discussing with their parliaments the issues of the Snowden revelations. We see that the parliaments usually have no clue what's going on in the intelligence services. That's a count out, I think. So there is a delta I, and it's dangerous. And where are the spy agencies now in that game? Well, we are privatizing, the US do, we do too. So that's nothing which is dependent on the US. Business war, of course, and really, just to bring that in mind again, if you have the thinking and you have the overview and you can control the thinking of the people, this is the real political power. And I must say, we Europeans lost that campaign already. We shouldn't talk, in my view, about can we win again or we are behind and what can we do? No, we are already kicked out. I can explain that and I want to. It's a little hard to face, I know. Well, I think I have to. These companies we all know are all US companies. And there's a reason for it. The US friends are doing something totally right and we are doing something totally wrong. I'm very happy that I already found people in Luxembourg seeing like that and want to correct that. Really, that's great. That's amazing to see it. I have the hope that it will change in Europe. I think one of the major issues is that the US really know how to finance ideas until they become profit and benefit. I really like that. And I think we have to learn, probably, we have to find a different way to do that for project, because we are Europeans, we have a European culture, we have to do it a different way, probably. But we really have to think more about that, and I like it that it's seen already in Luxembourg. Out of my discussions I had here, I can hear it from many people, it's already seen like that. So, but today, software means the US. SAP is changing nothing about that, okay? SAP is an exception in a long row, in a long sequence of US-only succeeding big software companies. It's getting even worse. It's getting even worse because hardware means Chinese. You know, just to remind you, this is a Chinese laptop. Can you see the logo? It's a Chinese laptop. Okay? Just to keep that in mind. Because the hardware is produced in China. It's produced in a Chinese factory, not in a US one. Hardware is Chinese. And it's not only the electric irons and the electric boilers. I don't know if you know that incident. We found some electric boiler and electric iron with a Wi-Fi in it and a software starting to attack your own Wi-Fi after you put the plug in. Okay? They were Chinese produced too. It's not only the electric, by the way, an electric boiler I think is for that kind of attack way more efficient than electric iron, because usually when I use an electric iron, I put the plug out when I'm ready, but with the electric boiler, I let it in the kitchen, so you have a way more longer time to attack your Wi-Fi passwords, okay? So it's not only hardware-based attacks like this, it's really hardware-based attacks. It's about trust. We heard a lot about trust. well, don't trust, for example, your electric ball in your kitchen, okay? So if someone decides at my US friends to put some software here to eavesdrop what I'm doing, then I have it 2 times. Because the first time is the hardware-based attack, the second time is software on top, okay? I hope they will not interfere like running my applications too, you know. If I'm not owning the device, it's more like borrowing from them, but I hope my applications will not crash because of that. So this is a question I want to introduce in the discussion. We are so way behind. We don't control the hardware, we don't control the software, really have to act. But in the first place, I think first action is we have to act like our opponent. And it's a pity to say that, but as a German reading that with a rest now, I have to face that the government of my friends looks like an opponent now. Not only the Chinese, but they are too, of course. Business is war. They already all have an uncatchable advantage in the battle. So what can we do? Ask yourself your question. What shall we do if that is the case, because it is? And then, after thinking about such measures, let's talk about how can we change that and win a little space back. Thank you for your attention.